Well, again, I have the pleasure to introduce Liz Crosson, who is the Chief Sustainability, Resiliency, and Innovation Officer for the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. That was my employer until about 9 months ago. And she's going to lead and facilitate the discussion on shared visions. And I think we had two great panels this morning, and this one is, I think, going to really take it home for the rest of the day. And then we have our poster sessions and all after that. So I'm hoping that you're able to stay around. But Liz has got the really important job of figuring out, as we adapt to climate change for the region, how do we piece together local supply with the supplies that the region gets from other places, and how do we do that in a way that makes sense overall, makes sense for the environment, particularly makes sense for climate change, and how do we have a reliable water supply. So this is a really important panel. We're going to be talking about shared vision, and I think later, in the concluding remarks, I think a lot of what we're going to want to talk about real briefly is just all of the panels and the breakout sessions. What does this mean in terms of making shared vision a reality? So Liz, if you can come up and lead your panel.
Thank you, Steve, and good afternoon, everyone. It's such an honor to be here moderating and bringing home this final panel of the day. So this panel is really focused on partnerships and how we all have, the opportunity and really obligation to work together, to sit at the same tables, to find common ground, and really to see each other's perspectives in order to really be the catalyst for the change we all want to see. So how many of you have been able to achieve some of your big goals by yourself? I think Bruce was about to, no. Just teasing. So, I see a lot of familiar faces in the room, and I think that I know through my own, time here in Los Angeles working on sustainability and water issues, whether that's, in the NGO community or in a government agency or the city of LA, really the best things that we've all been able to achieve together are the ones that we've been able to work on together. So, and that's, I don't see, it's not like there's a bunch of people in here from the same organizations necessarily that I've worked for, but those people in different organizations and different agencies that have been really critical partners to achieve really big things. So thank you all for all you've done so far, and I'm excited to introduce this panel of experts that are, some people that I know are working across many different places in order to achieve their visions. So I'm going to ask each of them to come up and speak here at the podium. They each have about 10-minute presentations. And, they can come up and speak and then go back and sit down in the audience. You don't all have to, stare at each other while another speaker is speaking, but then we'll call them back up and have a facilitated discussion. So today we have with us President Rudy Ortega Jr. From the Fernandeño Tataviam Band of Mission Indians. We have Carolina Hernandez, who is the Assistant Deputy Director of LA County Public Works. We have Francisco Romero, who is the Program Manager from Prevention Institute. Michael Affeldt from the Bureau of Engineering. He is the Los Angeles River Revitalization Coordinator. And Sarai Jimenez, who's the External Affairs Outreach Associate from the Nature Conservancy. And all of these people touch the watersheds of our region, play major roles within restoring the LA River and other tributaries within our region. So I'm excited to first call up Michael Affeldt to kick off this conversation.
I use this gizmo here. Okay. Yeah, someone tell me how this works. What did I do? Hi, everybody. Nice to be with you today. What do I need to press? Oh, okay. Oh, that's me. All right. Cool. It's so nice to be with everyone today. Again, my name is Mike Affeldt. I work for the city. I'm very proud to work for the city, doing LA River things. I've been doing that for about 12 years, and it's been the absolute privilege of a lifetime of a career. I hope to do it for many more years if they'll let me, and if you all will continue to be my partners in the work that we're doing. So I tried to think of a very fun title for my talk. So I came up with Outcome-Oriented Cross-Level Government Partnership. I hope that means something to you. I'm figuring out what it means to me. I'm going to attempt to give you sort of an overview of some of the big work that we're doing along the river with the city. There are many things I won't cover, but the big stuff. And I also want to talk a little bit about the partnerships that enable that work and some, I guess, observations that I have about what makes those partnerships effective. Honestly, it's more of a proposal than it is a conclusion, because there are a lot of times when things could be working a lot better. But when we do find success, I think there's a certain recipe for it. All right, so I'm going to begin with the LA Riverway bike path, which is, I say bike path, but the LA Riverway is really sort of a multimodal connectivity system, public access to the river. I think this is still job one for the city's revitalization master plan for the river. I think it's still job one overall for our capital program. We need to complete this path so people can get to the river, traverse it, and move through the region and appreciate the river. And that's how we're going to keep building attention and affection for the river. So where are we? Well, we have made a lot of progress. This picture here depicts the San Fernando Valley sections. And it's not all going to make a lot of sense. I'm not going to dig into it, but basically what we're seeing here is a plan to complete all the path segments in the valley. We did this planning a few years ago, and we are aggressively raising money for it. We started a couple years ago, we had 13 miles unfunded. Now we're down to 6, and we will be continuing to push for more funding to make that happen. Together with the work that Metro is doing to plan the similar project downtown, we will have, once we fund all this and build it, we will have a completely connected 51-mile riverway system, which I think is an absolutely critical milestone for the overall revitalization movement. So the government partnerships here are involve, and this is where that sort of cross-level part of my title comes in. Pretty much everything at the river involves a collaboration between local, regional, state, federal, all layered on top of each other. You all know this so well. Not everybody's work, I don't think, is like that, but certainly everything that happens at the river has all those layers of collaboration between governmental entities. And each one of those different operators at those levels all have their different priorities and goals and metrics and demands from their different constituencies, et cetera. And so what I see at the center of successful governmental collaborations across those levels is when we can approach these projects with a mission-oriented outlook, which might seem obvious, because I think a lot of people in this room work for mission-driven organizations, whether they're community-based, whether they're whether the mission is science, whatever it is. But I think too often sometimes that the mission part of government work is not at the center. We work towards goals, we work towards legal obligations, we work towards metrics that we set. And that doesn't always mean that we're centering mission in our work. And I think we succeed most when we do. And the reason why I think it's important with multi-agency governmental collaborations is because it can be difficult to find the overlap in our work sometimes and organize ourselves around that. I say that as a person who's been working for a long time with great partners at the county, and we'll hear from Carolina later, at the Army Corps of Engineers, we all have similar expectations for what the future of the river could be. But we have different frames of viewing that progress. Maybe, the Army Corps has traditionally been motivated by flood risk management. Now ecosystem is coming into focus. I'm not going to speak for Carolina, but Los Angeles County Flood Control District, it's in the name, also very flood risk management oriented, but of course with recent planning are more in tune to a comprehensive rehabilitation of the river. And so where it seems like there is obvious alignment, it's not always well articulated. So with this project, the mission here, I think, that we can center is on bringing people to the river, right? And we might have different motivations for doing that. Maybe the city, we're looking at traffic safety is a huge priority. Maybe the state of California, in thinking about funding this project, is thinking about greenhouse gas emission reduction. Maybe the LA County Flood Control District, who owns a lot of this right-of-way, is thinking about meeting a park equity or some other measure of open space, right? And those can all align around a mission of bringing people to the river. And if we can organize around a mission like that, we can let some of those other, some of our differences kind of fade away, and maybe see our actions and our, the different responsibilities we have to one another through that lens, and bring projects like this together. Otherwise, we can get stuck in our own obligations and get in each other's way. But we have found alignment on that mission, and we're making a lot of progress on a project like this. So the other project I want to give an update on is the Federal Ecosystem Restoration Project. Some of you will know it as ARBOR. These days we're calling it LARER. It's LA River Ecosystem Restoration. So this project, of course, is an 11-mile project area from north side of Griffith Park to downtown LA has completed its planning phase. I'm sure many people here have been involved in that. And is authorized at the federal level for action, right? And it feels like maybe we've been there for that authorization step for a while. Well, the next big step we have in our partnership with the Army Corps here is to execute an agreement to get into the delivery phase and actually start building this thing. Easier said than done. It's not a simple thing to effectuate an agreement to move forward between a municipality and the federal government around a facility as critical as the LA River with its sort of layered priorities. And I think that we're finding more success as we center a mission for this project of river health. And to the Army Corps, that might mean, a set of 2 minutes already? Oh my gosh, I gotta go a little faster. So that's an Army Corps of Engineers. That might mean a healthy river might mean one that is going to keep communities from flooding, and we would agree with that. To us, we might be more focused as well on recreation and open space, right? But I think that what we've found is success in centering the mission of river health and letting that translate into our actions and move forward on effectuating this partnership. So I'm excited to see this project move forward. I know it's been in planning for a long time. The next key steps we have are upcoming in the next few months to make this, to form this agreement to execute it with our city council. So I hope everyone will pay attention to that process as we move forward. This is just an image of one of the first phases of action from the project. It's going to be a restoration area we're on the north side of Griffith Park in an area called Pollywog Park, and I'm really excited to see these renderings come into reality. It's been a long time coming for the federal project. And then lastly, sort of the third in our kind of main, like 3 main pillars of big action along the river. So we have the Riverway, we have the Federal Ecosystem Project, and then we have everything happening around the Taylor Yard area. We've heard a little bit today already about the 100-acre partnership at Taylor Yard, so named because these publicly owned properties owned by the city, California State Parks, and the MRCA total 100 acres of open space alongside the river. Some of it's already park space, but a lot of it is yet to be rehabilitated and open to the public. 100-acre partnership, so that's the city, that's California State Parks, and the MRCA, Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority. I think with this partnership, we really have succeeded in developing a mission among those 3 agencies. And our mission is for cohesive park space with rich and diverse elements. Okay, we the city have goals that we need to meet. We have water quality money in this project. We have open space money in this project. We have transportation money that's going to be involved in this project. The MRCA is very focused on ecosystem outcomes. California State Parks, of course, is primarily about public recreation, but has a huge and successful mission on habitat as well. Those things all seem to jive very well, but we really had to come together, the 3 of us, and figure out how to express that mission among us. And that mission for cohesion has led us to create this partnership so that you really let the boundary lines kind of dissolve between these properties so we can provide a great space for the people and wildlife of LA. So here's a preview of, well, maybe some of you have seen this in some of the public meetings, of the first phase of action on Taylor Yard, which will be a public riverfront promenade and some water quality wetland space. Almost done. I'm going to finish here with we've heard a little bit about this project also around Taylor Yard, this sort of community-oriented equity strategy that Natalie spoke about this morning. Very proud that the city and the 100-acre partnership is partnering with NGO partners here. Now, this is an area where I think the governmental collaboration with the public really could benefit from a mission-oriented approach. Difficult to do. You would think it'd be the most natural thing, right? We have public agencies. We directly serve and represent our constituencies, but we all know that distrust can exist, and it can be very difficult for the government, governmental folks to work at the ground level of community organizations. So I think this is an area where we have to really learn from all of the people in this room and the way that you have this mission-oriented approach to your work and drive towards that mission to the exclusion of things that would hang you up. It's a difficult thing for government to do, but we have to let go of some of the siloing. We have to let go of some of the things that slow us down. And I think partnering with community organizations is an opportunity for us to learn how mission can drive our work. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of an overview of those 3 projects. Again, it's more of a proposal about the way I'm thinking about the way we can work better together as government entities. And thank you for the time.
Okay, we were pretty lenient there on the timekeeping. That's okay. It was great. Thank you, Mike. And next up, we have Carolina Hernandez from County Public Works.
So Mike took up all of my time. So hello. That's it. No, I'm just kidding. It's nice. I get to work with Mike quite a bit, and so he he's okay with my jokes. And somebody was supposed to help me with this. Yeah, there we go. Again, I'm Carolina Hernandez. I am an assistant deputy director with LA County Public Works. Thank you, Liz, and thank you, Council for Watershed Health, for letting me be here today and giving me this opportunity to talk a little bit more about something that I can talk about for days. But I will not do that to all of you. I'll try to keep it brief. And really try to, also I'd love to kind of build off of a lot of the good sharing that Mike just did with us. And in the spirit of what we're talking about today, really lean into some of those partnerships. So I was really unique with my title, by the way. Just copied the exact same thing. So really, I'm here to talk to you about the LA River Master Plan update. It was adopted about a year ago. But I want to take a step back, and I know that so many of you are super educated on the watershed and the LA River. You wouldn't be here, wouldn't be interested. But I think it's worthwhile just to take another step and kind of think about the watershed and some of these really critical points. Like, we have 51 miles of this river. And I think what was interesting to me is 2,300 acres are publicly owned. And, another one is, we talk about coordination. You have 17 municipalities along the river. And really, when we started and embarked on this, there were over 100, close to 150. As you can see, there are different plans that touched the LA River in some way. And many of you that are from here, so you know that you have a population, and maybe you didn't know this statistic, but it's about 1 million people live within a mile of the LA River. So I think that was really important to share with you, because it always gives me context, even though I know it, to hear it again and to understand why it's so critical to communicate and to reach out and to understand perspective. And I want to give you a bit of a timeline. So in 1996, the first LA River Master Plan was published by LA County. And then in later years, there was, as I mentioned, up to 100, almost 150 different documents. So the County Board of Supervisors, said at one point, look, it's been 20 years, and our communities want more. Our communities need more. We need to update this plan. This is important. Let's take a look at it, and let's see what we could do. So we started in earnest, and it's just a quick timeline in 2018, and you can see it ending in 2022. So just a frame of reference, we were here 5 years ago for the symposium. And so it kind of, I think it's really important to understand, we're really just embarking, and what's happened, so much can happen in such a, and not to mention what's happened in the world, right? But what's consistent is trying to meet the need of community and trying to work together. And really, if there's anything we've learned over the last few years, it's our need for one another. So I really want to focus on a little bit more on engagement. And so I wanted to just very quickly mention that we had a steering committee of 41 members that were from diverse backgrounds, but really had amazing understanding of the LA River watershed, whether that was agencies, NGOs, business leaders. We just really was important to have all kinds of different experts in the room. And we went ahead and we had 8 steering committees. We had, I'm going to talk about this a little bit more, but we had 13 in-person community meetings. I'm going to talk about how really it was critical to get community engaged. And then a little bit about our community partner program, which ultimately led us to adoption later. So, as I said, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this. I think it's important, I like Mike, I look out and I see so many of you that helped us move forward on this effort. And I think it's important to be forthcoming and say, this was an extensive effort. Everybody that participated in it really, I think, gave it their best, was very committed. Not everybody likes the plan. And I think I need to be transparent with you and say that that really is the case. Not every, there are things that maybe people wanted less of, people wanted more of, or just different. And I think that is, again, important to recognize, because Some things are really starting points. Some things, obviously you heard we had a 1996 plan. This is an evolution. Does it mean that I think it's perfect or it's the best plan ever? No, I think it's a good plan. But I think that it's important to understand that there was quite a bit of compromise from everybody, and it was a commitment and an effort to come in and share your view and advocate and understand and listen to community and hear what they needed. That was really critical. So all of this whole slide here is really about, well, what do we do to reach community? And you can see a bunch of different things on there. But I think what's really important is a couple things. Let me recognize that the master plan, again, I mentioned there's about 140 documents, but I want to mention a couple in particular that came after 1996 and before our update of the plan, and that we built upon. The City of LA's LA River Revitalization Plan. It's a huge piece. The states worked on plans for both the upper and lower LA River that we incorporated into this plan. So again, significant mindful efforts that came in and we incorporated into this. But community really was a basis, and we truth tested everything because ultimately that's what we need, right? When the Board of Supervisors gave us this task, they said our community members are asking for more. They need more. We need to do more. And so this is some of the things we did. We actually had, we're very fortunate, we're able to have a forum here to hear from our Native American communities and our tribal leaders, not all of them, but some. And that was a huge learning moment for me. I'll say another part, that this has been a huge privilege to work on something like this. I have the opportunity to oversee the staff that work on things like the county water plan that maybe some of you heard about just recently, or the Safe Clean Water program is also under my purview. And those are amazing programs, and I think, again, they're all very different though, and this was a learning experience because of the push to communicate with community and to understand and to compromise, and really just humbling, trying to tackle something like this. You recognize, okay, I need the support of so many. Doesn't matter what my years of experience have been, doesn't matter what I've done in the past. I need the support of so many, and so that's what really this is. It's a lot of engagement we did over 2 or 3 years. What do we end up with? Well, we ended up with 9 goals, and what I really just want to say about that is that if you look at another engineering master plan, sometimes you'll see that it's very heavy on maybe flood risk mitigation or water quality or all important things. I'm not minimizing it, but this one was a little different in that you can see that we really determined early on that it was important to address potential adverse impacts to housing affordability and people experiencing homelessness. I mean, we're still dealing with these issues today, and it's important that it be recognized. The other part is just recognizing art and culture. Amazing today that we're at a place like this where we can appreciate that. This is those 9 goals really shown in a map perspective where you can see the data collected. So what do we need to do when we talk to community? Well, if any of you have been outreach to community lately, you recognize that there's an important, especially those of us that are in government, that there's a need to build trust. And so data sometimes does that. And so this is a lot of that data that was really critical. This is the data stretched out to look like a ruler. So you see over there on the right that your left, that the river's there, and we kind of made it, if it was vertical, this is what it looked like, and you can see the different elements, and you can open up this plan and really see what I like to call a cookbook and determine, okay, what is happening in my river mile? What are the things that are being tackled, not just from a scientific perspective, but also what did my community say there? This is the kit of parts that we ultimately landed on, and this is the infrastructure that was determined. But I want to point out that they're going to have different feelings about these different kit of parts, and you're going to have some that want to use one and want to use the other. This plan does not dictate which ones community should choose. It gives them the opportunity. And ultimately, we came to a plan adoption last year, as I mentioned. We've been implementing for a year. You can go to the website, and I'll give that to you in a second. When our board adopted, it was really important that we had a method by which to hold ourselves accountable. I heard that, I think it was from Quite Beautiful in our last session about accountability, and one of the things that we felt that our board felt was critical was to make our own departments accountable. So these are the various departments there. And I only put this here, and they're all county departments because that's what our board has authorities over. But it is by no means the logos of what it will take to actually see a plan like this come to fruition, or any work along the river, but only to show the county's commitment to implementation. So again, there's my contact information. There's a website, QR code, whatever's easiest for you. I think if you take away anything from here is that you can go and go to this website and really find great data, great information. That to get there, it took an incredible amount of collaboration and partnership. And lastly, that it isn't perfect. And that it's important to recognize that there are probably improvements that can be made over time, but that's going to take the collective. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Carolina. Next up, we have Sarai Jimenez from the Nature Conservancy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sarai Jimenez here on behalf of the Nature Conservancy, and I am going to focus in on partnerships with community. Mike talked about the 100-acre partnership, and I'm going to zero in on 3 acres of the 100-acre partnership. So before getting into my presentation, I'd like to reflect on that partnerships, when we enter into partnerships, we're really bringing our individual selves into the work. Our individual motivations, our personal histories, our families, our communities, we bring all of that to the table when we're working in partnership with others. And for me, I really strive to ground myself in my personal background when working on community-centered, nature-based solutions for brownfields. So I grew up in Los Angeles, and my only access to nature was parks. My parents, who were undocumented immigrants at the time, took my siblings and I to parks. And so in the communities that I work now, I am not from that community, but I really identify with some of the struggles that those community members face. And I care about those communities. I care about their well-being, and I want little kids, like when I was a little kid, to have access to that open space, especially those who don't currently have it. So a little bit about the Bowtie Wetland Demonstration Project. So the red portion is the 3 acres of the 18-acre Bowtie parcel owned by state parks. We have the communities of Glassell Park, Elysian Valley, Atwater Village, and Cypress Park, who we've done a lot of outreach to over the past few years. I joined TNC December of 2020, and outreach had occurred prior to me joining the Nature Conservancy. So you can see a little bit on this map, it's surrounded by freeways, transit, there's rail on the eastern portion of the property, and urban heat and air pollution are a lived reality of the communities in this area. So this is an aerial image of the site. The LA River is at the top or portion of the photograph, and then you have the rail on the bottom portion of the photograph. State Parks purchased this property in 2003, and this took place after extensive community advocacy. There are many community members, many community-based organizations that advocated for this property to be purchased by state parks for open space. They did not want any more industrial uses in this area and in this portion of their community. It is a former rail yard, and operations left contaminants on the property, and so it is defined as a brownfield. The Department of Toxic and Substances Control oversees the remediation of brownfields in California. So this is an image of a portion of this soft bottom channel of the LA River. You see vegetation in the LA River. There are a lot of species that you see flying around or swimming in the river. Yesterday I saw an osprey on a site visit. On the Elysian Valley portion of the LA River, so the western bank, there is a bike path, but on the eastern side, there currently is no direct access to the LA River. So the goals of our project are to improve water quality, enhance habitat, increase public access, provide educational opportunities, and clean up historic contamination. The images that you see of community were taken in 2019 and 2020. This was a really important phase of community engagement for our project, led by Mujeres de la Tierra, Prevention Institute, and Friends of the LA River. They actually incorporated a really important model for community engagement. Local community members were hired as promotores to outreach via surveys to their fellow community members to ask them what was important to include in nature-based investments in their community. And the learnings from those surveys were put together in a really great report, and we use those learnings to this day. And so all of those goals on the screen, we are lucky to be able to reach them through a vegetated multi-benefit stormwater management, habitat enhancement, and public access project. So to give you a visual, because that's a really long description there, we have this 90% design. So we're going to have a wetland that's going to offer habitat for local species and also public access components. Currently, dirty stormwater flows directly into the LA River. We're going to filter that stormwater through a filtration system. Then we're going to pump up that treated water. It's going to flow through the wetland. And we're going to be able to have water on site all year round. So I'm going to show you a few renderings, and I'd like you to focus on what you see in these images, right? We see both people and we see species and plants all jointly enjoying this shared space. And so I'd like to now focus in a little bit more on the outreach that we've done. So when thinking of an analogy for what community engagement means to me, I wanted to ask you all to think about what happens when you go into someone's home. So when it's somebody that you know, a friend, a family member, they welcome you in, maybe they offer you food. You might compliment something in their home, like their couch. They might tell you about some leaky pipes, and you might share recommendations with them of a plumber that you know. What happens if you let yourself into a home that isn't yours? You just open the door and you tell them, I'm here to fix your home. I know that you like the couch that you have, but I have a better couch for you. Maybe they'll still tell you about the leaky pipes and ask you to fix those leaky pipes, but what if you tell them, oh, well, I'm not here to fix the pipes, I'm just here to replace your couch. Maybe the interaction wouldn't go that well, right? When you go into someone's home that isn't yours to tell them what they should do in their home. And so when we're doing outreach, when we're engaging with communities and proposing projects, and we don't live in that community or work in that community, we need to treat the work we do as if we're going into someone else's home. And we need to treat the people that we're working with as the experts of their home, and we need to learn from them for whatever it is that we're going to implement in their home. So here are a few key words that I wanted to share with you all around community-centered engagement. So capacity building. For the Bowtie Wetland Demonstration Project, we've had the privilege of working with several community-based organizations. I mentioned a few. One of them, another community-based organization that we've worked with is Anahuac Youth Sports Association. They do youth soccer programming currently on Rio de Los Angeles State Park, which is part of the 100-acre partnership. It is also part of Taylor Yard. It was remediated and is now an amenity that is really beloved by all of the community members. And so we were able to use some of our flexible funding to support a soccer tournament for the community and also host an event where we talked about our project to give updates about next steps for our project. And we had partners from the local community join and table with us. So capacity building is important for our small community-based organizations to be able to reach community where they're at and also support the growth of those community-based partners. So community priorities. My colleagues and I have joined the 4 neighborhood councils on a monthly basis for more than 3 years now, and we've had an opportunity to learn about the priorities of those communities. It's through the neighborhood councils that we learned about a lot of unhoused community member advocacy. A lot of neighbors want to care for their unhoused neighbors, and so through them we were able to connect with other houseless advocacy coalitions to talk to them about how to outreach to unhoused community members and also how our project could serve some benefits for those community members. We've showed up consistently. We've been transparent about both the contamination on site and our plans to remediate the land, and also ask for community input for our proposal with the Department of Toxic and Substances Control. It's been important for us to be timely with community member questions, and this might be the external affairs person in me, like with elected officials, I try to respond less than 24 hours. With community members, it's the same, if not less. We want to be as responsive as possible. It's been important to listen, and it's been really important to be reciprocal where we can, to support our community partners with small grants, with support letters, with support their endeavors that are outside of our specific project, because we want to support the well-being of the community way past when we break ground for this project, while at the same time recognizing that our project is going to have multiple benefits that we hope will be long-lasting in community. And it's taken a lot of internal coordination, both with state parks, the 100-acre partners as a whole, joining each other's events, referring people to other points of contact when they have questions about each other's projects. And it's really been a fruitful experience. Again, centering our work in community member expertise, knowledge, and their visions for their future and their home. So with that, I'll leave my contact information, and we will be starting remediation and construction early next year and opening to the public in 2026. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarai. I think it's that was a great kind of progression from thinking about federal partnerships, large projects along the river with Mike, and then the county-wide view of the 51 miles, and down to some of the really on-the-ground community projects and really great examples of what it means to really engage with community. And I think our next speaker will exemplify that as well, from the Prevention Institute, who I think sets some really great best practices and examples for how to meaningfully engage with community. So Francisco Romero, you're up.
Okay, good afternoon. You are going to be the first to see me sport my new glasses, because I can't see that far anymore. There we go. So, full transparency, I'm Francisco Romero, Program Manager at Prevention Institute, 6 weeks in. When the planning for this summit symposium was happening, I was at my former position at Promesa Boyle Heights, right here in the neighborhood of Boyle Heights, with Proyecto Pastoral out of out of what we call the flats right there in Boyle Heights. And I can't stop and start without acknowledging the promotoras that have been here all day from Promesa Boyle Heights and the community organizers with them. So I'm gonna jump back and forth between the Promesa hat and the Prevention Institute hat. So just briefly as Promesa, when we leverage resources, we always say, put a chunk of money to make sure we have transportation, interpretation. That's why Don Javier, a shout out to Don Javier from Lex Lingua here, to always provide a space, because for the promotoras, this is a training ground. This is capacity building. And you know what? When we write a grant, we say training capacity building around stormwater capture, X, Y, and Z, this many times a year. And we have those resources, and the promotoras get paid to be here the whole day. And so this is the type of leveraging of resources that we believe in as Promesa Boyle Heights, and many of our partners as well. So I'm going to go into the Prevention Institute hat for a second and say, if you have your phone right now and you have internet access, type in preventioninstitute.org. I'll give a second for that. And then hit the search button and put a time of opportunity. And it's a document, and my colleague, mentor, Elba Yanez, who's I believe is still here, just presented earlier, and it reminded me of how powerful that report is. It really is a document that talks about the cross-cutting, intersection, kind of public health approach to the question of stormwater capture and conserving water for the future. And so please take a look at that document. Not right now while I'm speaking, but whenever you get a free moment, it's a fairly quick read, but I think you would appreciate it. Okay, so now I'm gonna kick off that. Almost 8 years ago, I landed a part-time temporary organizer position at Promesa, and the first assignment that I got was they handed me the keys to the van and said, "You're gonna pick up all the señoras right now, and you're headed to the LA River Center." And I'm like, "All right, let's go." And there I was, and the señoras were like, "Hey, how you doing? You're the new guy, right?" "Yeah." And we got to the LA River Center, and it was magical what happened there. The Council for Watershed Health and other organizations had put together what a carousel-style table situation, where in each of the tables there was a different, like an engineer, a public works person, a water quality person, and then the families and community would rotate and learn. And it all happened real quick, plus we had tamales. Right? So, in that moment, I had no idea or any, aspiration to understand the question of park equity, open space, stormwater capture, water equity. It was like I had come from the immigrant rights, movement sector, but the tools and the organizing skills that I learned there, I brought them in to the new team that we were building, which was with Promesa Boyle Heights. And that program, talk about funding, that Council for Watershed Health, with the support of the Water Foundation, had put together some funding so they could pay for the transportation, for the food, for the interpreter for the day at that Water Dialogues. That program called Water Dialogues was, it was participatory. You had a lot of exploration. We went to go check out nature. We went to go check out the Elmer Avenue mass, community stormwater capture project. And the promotoras and the community that was learning, they turned to me and the rest of the leaders, staff there at Promesa, and said, "This is a top priority for us. Water equity, the future of our water, whether it's quality or stormwater capture, this is a critical movement issue, and we're going to put it into our strategic plan and go with it." So now I could turn to this. And along that pathway, Prevention Institute comes in, and we intervened alongside with Prevention Institute and others around Measure A to make sure there was equity provisions. Because as Prevention Institute, the whole question of really doing policy, systems level impact for procedural, structural, distributional kind of equity is at the heart of the work that we do at Prevention Institute. And we also believe as Prevention Institute that always trying to leverage resources to do the very same thing like that the Water Dialogues program did, what the Built Environment Policy Advocacy Fund did. That funding really kept the glue together for what we call the Park Equity Alliance. I say all that because I have about 6 more minutes or less, but I want to get into this redesign. I think the ReDesignLA model, I guess I'm in control of this, right? Started off with a handful of organizations. Council for Watershed Health, Water Foundation, a bunch of folks, put together what we call a mentor to mentee program. And at that point, Active SGV and Day One came to Boyle Heights in East LA and mentored us back then to know and understand how the system works around building projects, right? Getting actual project development going. At that time, the name was Building the Community Capacity to Build Multi-Benefit Projects. That was the name of the thing, but then we rebranded and we call it now ReDesignLA. And I say we because, we've all had taken ownership of participating in this space. You can see how it has grown over time because the impact is real. For Promesa Boyle Heights Proyecto Pastoral, for example, we were able to mobilize, organize, do the type of engagement that Sarai was talking about, and get like $13 million for the renovation of Salazar Park. And then get another $12 million for what we're calling the City Terrace Plaza. And then to run ahead of the city and say, hey, we heard you all going to do something here at Hollenbach Park Lake. We're behind you. Let's get started. Here's what the community wants. Like before we even knew what they were designing already, the community already had initiated ideas. But then it's that whole partnership thing, sitting down at the table together. All right, here we go. We're going to fly through this. So, water touches so many aspects of community. This is what I was saying from the document, The Time of Opportunity, at preventioninstitute.org. No, just kidding. That it's an issue that, as you can see, touches on the question of public health, education. I mean, the list, jobs training, that's like the future of the career pathways for so many of the youth coming out of the neighborhoods we work out of. And how is it that they're going to touch that or get that opportunity if it doesn't come? And so that's part of the work with ReDesignLA. And so, it's people to people. It's like folks figuring out and showing other folks how to do it. Because to do the type of impact, whether we're trying to mobilize, do systems level change, you have to have a community that truly has, adopted it and put it within their heart that this is how they want to mobilize, right? So if we don't have the mass of people behind us, it's going to be very difficult to do the type of impacts that we're talking about. This is why Measure A and Measure W were able to pass, because a lot of education and community dialogues happened about why those measures were important. It was saying that we're willing to pay with our taxes to protect the future of our people, our community, all people, for stormwater and park space, right? And there's cycles. That's the other thing, that you start a project, like the Salazar Park project, it was like a 15, 20-year kind of dream, minimum. And we're going to break ground like in about 6 months. But, yeah. I mean, and because it's slow process, you know, some people always say, you're gonna survey the people to boredom. You're gonna raise the false expectations that things are gonna happen right away. But you know, in those moments while that's happening, we're not just kind of waiting. We have curriculum that, thanks to, again, folks like Prevention Institute and others that are willing to leverage funds to build the capacity of the residents to stay involved, to organize, to build up their leadership skills. So they are the ones that are leading, right? So it's a multi-step thing. So I'm going to pause now because I think I'm at time, almost, right? But this whole presentation, you could get it. This was 25 slides. I tried to bring it down to like 6 or 7. It just didn't work. There was too much going on. But so we just want to say that the impact is real. This program is growing. So if there's any funders out there, hit up Council for Watershed Health and say we want to invest in ReDesignLA, right? Because you know it's going to filter back down into the neighborhoods that we serve. I'm doing a pretty good job at organizing, right, and advocating. So there's a picture. Talk about our connection. I'll end here with this, that we're building a network of organizations that not only, because, you know, we're all on the same, you know, major watershed, right, without, you know, dividing it up the way we do. But look at how many are popped up along the rivers or the tributaries, right? And so we're building, it's a movement. That's basically what we're trying to say. This is a movement of community organizations. But to do that, you have to actually have community. And to do that, you actually have to have the resources to build up the capacity to do the type of systems change, you know, power building, as we call it, necessary. I'm proud to say, and I'll end with this, I'm actually, after this, gonna catch a flight out of here. Prevention Institute, through the People Parks Power Initiative, a national initiative where millions of dollars have been invested in 14 organizations, including one here in LA, Physicians for Social Responsibility, to do the same type of work that we're talking about. Power building, base building, movement building, to make systems change impact, the type we need. And so I'll be out there in Durham with a community organization out there, and we're going to be doing something like this, co-sharing with each other best practices on how to move that needle and turn the tide. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much. That was really inspiring. So we have our last speaker of this panel, and then we will go to some questions. We have Tribal President Rudy Ortega, Jr.
Well, it's great. Again, welcome everybody, and it's great to be back up here. Earlier I spoke and a little bit of glimpse of my tribal history and the work that we do, and you saw some of the slides here. Actually, I just said everything they're doing, we're part of it as well, so thank you so much. And follow his lead, I'm off the stage. No, but I think we have a slide here. I hope so, yep. I just wanted to show, earlier I talked about our tribal boundary map, and it's important to discuss tribes in general, because as we engage in multiple tribes in Los Angeles, a lot of it has been wrong by the government, right? The county and so on. And when we talk about land policies, there hasn't been really a policy given to tribes itself. How do you access lands itself? How do you maintain culture and practices? So a lot of it has been hidden or forgotten. But this is the recruitment of Mission San Fernando. And I'd like to show this map because this covers a lot of tribal identities. I have another map that we didn't put on here, but it shows an overlaying of different tribal regional groups. So it wasn't just one area that was covered for everybody. It's a very complex system. In the San Fernando Valley, you was spoken, like I said earlier, or in the Toctic language, Pivatam, which is Chumash people, Pipimaram language, which is south of the Encino area and Santa Monica Mountains and down to the Catalina Islands. And then Hamyatam language, or Kavitam language, which is Serrano language, and Pasivitam language. So when we talk about these cultures and languages, we're unpacking it. And when you go to the tribes and you ask access for land access or land policies, we're in the midst of creating that right now. In 2009, when my father passed away, we created a policy with the city of San Fernando with the MOU that I mentioned earlier that grants us land access. As we go through the process and we talk about when I was on the LA River Master Plan, and again, as mentioned earlier, it's not perfect, but it's a path towards it. Because in 2016 and the ones prior to that, even when they created the LA River, tribes had no say. And so we didn't have the opportunity to come to the table and to express our feelings, our ideas, our opinions to the land, to the river, or what it was called. In Fernandeño language, or Pacific language, is audit, right? How it's kin to us. One of the slides earlier from the LA River Master Plan show a panel that we had Gabrielino, not only the fact that we had different tribal representatives there, but we had indigenous people south of the border, including the conversation here, because I felt it was important to have their voice, because they're here in Los Angeles, as many of us who are not, we use the term native, but we're not native, right? Unless you're indigenous, you have your DNA from the oak trees, from this land, the water, and the soil, right? Then you're truly native, right? So, but we include those indigenous folks south of the border because they're here practicing. They're using the soccer fields, they bring back traditions, ancient games that haven't been practiced for a long time, they shared with us. So as we look towards the policy and we see the land area and the river goes through it, it goes through multiple portions of tribal communities that spoke in multiple languages. And the policies, what is it? And we're still creating that right now. We're talking to county parks. We're talking to the county CEO. We're talking to MRCA, Santa Monica Conservancy, California State Parks, the Federal National Park Services, Angeles Forests, and each one that we're still writing policy out, right? Right now we have a written policy, I was sharing this earlier, and that's, it's a policy given by the Angeles Ranger that gives us access to go harvest in the Angeles Forest. Without that, we can't harvest, but we have their voice. And if it's a written policy that grants us that policy practice, then we're able to do so. So that's our, again, it's an ancestral territory of our tribe that we have that encompasses and representatives. Today, my tribe only represents 3 lineages. Out of 140 villages, and I don't show all villages on this map, but 140 some villages that were baptized at Mission San Fernando, 5 that we identified are existing today, 3 are enrolled in our tribe today. And we're just shy of 1,000 people. Some people are hesitant to enroll because they didn't know they had to enroll in the tribe, register to become a tribal citizen of our tribe. Some folks don't have the documentations, and other folks, unfortunately, no longer are with us on this face, on this earth. And I like to express that because each village doesn't have a representative today. And that's a powerful statement. 2,992 people baptized at Mission San Fernando that were native people, indigenous. And some of them were as far as Cahuilla people that were brought up here and baptized San Fernando. But out of that, by 1850, there was only 492 or 475 people that were Fernandeño or Pasevatam people, or Paseva, which was called San Fernando, were Fernandeño. And so when we look at San Fernando, 475, and it declined there further down to just shy of 170 people by 1880. 1870. By 1880, we were down to 30 people on U.S. Census. A lot of people hid their culture, refused to call themselves native, and that was due because of the policies that were here by the U.S., California, and the County of Los Angeles, City of San Fernando. 1890, when the City of San Fernando started looking for property, the policy was to remove native people. We had an Indian agent that came over to San Fernando and said, here's a policy that you have that we want to move this land to trust for this tribe. And we were moved from Encino, which is right adjacent to the LA River, and then taken to Mission San Fernando, to the City of San Fernando, which was my great-grandfather, Antonio Maria Ortega. So he was there at that time, 18 years old of age. We lost the property as well. Today is named after my father, Rudy Ortega Senior Park, which we have the MOU with, City of San Fernando, but we're embarking on more policy that grants access to usage of the area, especially the river. So when we talked about the LA River Master Plan, they talked about what ceremonies do you have? Tribe has this comfort, and we talked about earlier the conversation about trust. Do you have trust? Well, we told you this before, but you took it and you wrote in the book, and Affeldt made tons of money while the tribes left with no access to properties or access to practice tradition and culture. So that's that hesitant part. And then when we pass over a generation, now that only a few of us, handful of us that knows it or have been passed down, and it has been like pretty much a rediscovery, because we had to learn from our ancient ancestors words that they passed down from our parents and grandparents. My father, one thing he would say is that your grandmother, Rudy, would make balili. And he didn't know balili was one of our words. It's throughout Southern California. It meant fry bread. And he said it was little diamond-shaped style bread this size. What was interesting is that when I was in North Dakota, they made balili, or fry bread, and the size of that as well. They said, we don't make this big fry bread. That's more later. The traditional fry bread is this small, and they gave it to us. So it's a shared culture. But again, when we talk about these land access, land policies, I encourage you all, I thank you all, because all the projects that I had mentioned, we had some engagement, even down to the Tyler Yards. They reach out to us, they bring us in, we tell them that's Gabrielino, we have enough to do, you go ahead and talk to those guys. They're like, no, would you come over? We still like to talk to you. We said, no, you guys could go talk to Gabrielino. But we stay within our boundary lines, and the yellow area is the overlapping area that we share, so those are areas that we jointly partner up with the tribes. And one of the policies that we have is like Chairman Morales from San Gabriel Band and many other Gabrielino bands, like Gabrielle Crow here. I grew up knowing her grandmother, Vera Rocha. And Manuel Rocha was an instrumental mentor to me in the spirituality of the quest that I took on. And so Chairman Morales, his father, Sparky Morales, spoke to my father and worked on the project of Encino and tried to preserve and protect it as much as possible. So the tribes do talk. We have legacies of communication and families that have spoken over and over and over. And once in a while, my office staff gets a little frustrated and say, hey, who's that calling you? It's Chairman Morales. We're checking in. We do our weekly calls. But that's the thing, that we do communicate in one another, and we share, we work with each other. But it's important to look at how you include us in the partnerships and the projects you're working on to the capacity. I remember earlier in the conversation, we talked about how much we have time, and some of the tribes don't have a full capacity or bandwidth or team members there, but work with them and we collaborate with one another. Sometimes they reach out to us knowing that we have a little bit more staff and say, can you help us out and relay the information? That's how we relay the information back and forth with one another. But that's what I wanted to share with you. I didn't do the slides. I'm going to check if I have a slide or not. Nope, that's it. So I wanted to be sure on that. But before I go, we talk about partnership, sharing, and creating, this relationship and how to work with each other. So if you all don't mind, I want to do a little exercise. If you can all stand up. This song, I'm going to teach you all. You guys can record in your mind or audio, learn it. We're still in summer right now. It's a summer song. Our youth have created this song, and we teach this song, and it's a community song. This song is for sharing, right? So you can learn this song. And some of the folks, after I shared it out to the other folks or meetings that I have like this, they're like, I should have recorded it. I said, I told you should have recorded it, but you didn't do it. So it's on you. So I'm going to explain the words. We're going to sing one round, and then that's it. That's pretty much my time, okay? I'm not on the flight or anything like that, like this guy right here. I'll be around. So the first word is tamit. Everyone can say tamit? So tamit means sun. Tami, can you say tami? Tami means shiny. Tamit, tami. Tamit, tami. All right, that's the first course. The second one is a little bit more tamit ve. Icham. Bucho. So that means, it's two, in our language, it's kind of like Spanish. It means a couple things, right? It means the sun takes care of us, or the sun watches over us, right? Icham is us, right? All of us, kind of thing. So, Tame ve, Icham puchu. All right, so we're going to go from the top. Tame tami. Tame tami. Tame tami. Tamet ve. I champuchu. Tame tami. Tame tami. Tame tami. Tamet ve. I champuchu. All right, great. Thank you, everybody. You may be seated.
All right, so if I could call my panelists up here to take a seat. So we do have a little time for some questions. We have a microphone up here that we'll set up so that you all can come up and ask your questions. I'm sure you have some really good ones. I really enjoyed hearing from each of our panelists. Is there somebody that wants to kick us off? Don't be shy. Yes, right here.
Hi, I'm Arturo Gonzalez. I'm with the Rivers and Mountains Conservancy. And first of all, I want to thank all of you for your work along the river. This weekend, I was actually part of a group of formerly incarcerated gentlemen who went up to Sequoia, and we all swam in the river for the first time. And it was really reinvigorating, and it was a part of a healing process. Growing up along the river, that was our playground. And for me, it kept me away from gangbanging, or to a certain degree. I got involved in it, but I started painting, and I have a lot of friends who did the same thing, and it pulled us out of that life. In fact, we run a little collective of former gang members who have used their art to, move forward in life. It's called East Side of the River. I wanted to know if any of you can speak to your efforts. The LA River was always home to a graffiti culture, and it was a mechanism to pull people out of that lifestyle. It was like a 20-mile urban gallery that is now painted beige. And I wanted, just to see if any of you can elaborate on your efforts to work with graffiti writers, gang members, those kind of populations that oftentimes are overlooked, but are a cultural aspect of the communities along the river.
Yeah, and it's a really great question. I mean, I think that you're right that graffiti is seen as, typically seen as a nuisance and something that needs to be taken care of and kind of quickly erased because, we have fears of the relation to gangs and things like that. But I think you're right to touch on that there are cultures of street art and graffiti that we all can do, at least the government agencies can do a better job understanding. So I think it's a really good challenge for us that you pose. I think one of the examples I think we might be able to work on something like that is in the Taylor Yard project. There's a couple of elements that, because of the years of where they've been sort of laid fallow, there is existing graffiti street art that I have no expertise in evaluating, but it exists there, and we've heard from community members in our outreach a desire to either, if not maintain that exactly as it is, but to create a place where street art can be expressed in the site. So it's something that we're taking seriously. We've heard that in our outreach. We'd have to figure out how we would, do that in a way that makes government people comfortable. But that kind of gets to what I was saying before. Is like if we take that as a mission of like let's find a way to express community street art, then we keep that frame, then that maybe can help us get over some of our fears about what that could bring. So I think it's a really good challenge. I don't have an answer exactly, but I think I take that challenge to work on that.
I'd like to take a shot at that question too, and just kind of first start by saying that I probably have a similar experience to Mike's, but I think it was more of an understanding and people like you coming forward during certain development, for example, of the LA River Master Plan, and really sharing the critical importance of art and culture to connecting communities, right? And I talked about how, from our perspective, we're looking, at the whole 51 miles of the LA River, And it's not homogeneous in so many different ways. And how do you visualize that? To some extent, as a regional agency, I want to go in there and make sure that everybody know, from an equity perspective, everybody knows where they are on the LA River. But it's also so important to make sure people feel represented in their own communities. So to speak, I don't want to shy away from your question regarding street art. I would say, similar to Mike, that we have very limited experience with it, and it was a lift, and it came from a partnership with a community-based organization that we even got there in that instance that I'm talking about. But we do feel that it's critical. That's why it was actually not just for LA County, but all of the people that were part of that steering committee, important to recognize art and culture that needed to be there. And so most recently, LA County created, a department surrounding art and culture, and they really are, some of their funding is coming from capital investment, a certain percentage to have to do that, because we're recognizing that art needs to be incorporated in public spaces everywhere. And so the first examples that I think there might be a poster later that you might be able to see that of a project that is at the headwaters of Canoga, and we're really hoping to incorporate civic art. Not specifically, the art you're talking about, but I think that there is a path, as Mike puts it, to get there.
Yeah, let's figure out a way to make it possible. I think that we can figure that out. I think with the right amount of effort. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great question. You have a question, Melinda?
I feel like the audience is shy today. My name is Melina Watts, and I'm part of Safe Clean Water program. And I'm very interested in the concept of nature-based solutions as a path towards safe, clean water. And in particular, if you talk about nature-based solutions, to me that means sustaining biodiversity. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on how we can sustain biodiversity, one. And number two, when you think about restoring a creek or a river, I'm very interested in what they call the hyporheic zone, which is the soft bottom underneath the creek or river, which actually has living things in it, like soil does, that could radically clean water. So are you incorporating restoring the hyporheic zone into the whole large process? Thank you for all that you do.
I can jump in. So for our Bowtie Wetland Demonstration Project, we are balancing the needs of nature and people. And the habitat that we're creating is for biodiversity, to support biodiversity. You saw the picture of the bow tie right now, and it's pretty much a vacant lot. And so we are going to transform that into a place where birds can nest, and also have more habitat for the wildlife that are currently within the LA River. As to your second question, I don't have a good answer for that. I know that just due to sort of standards, the water needs to be treated to a certain point to be able to flow in the wetland, right? And we want it to be safe for the species. So the filtration system is planned to treat the water to a certain point. But I have heard some information about what you've shared, that there are organisms that can clean water within a wetland itself. It's not something that I can speak to too much more than that.
I suggest you read Water Always Wins by Erica Guys, Chapter 4.
Okay.
All right, we have some homework. Regarding the hyporheic zone, I just want to give a shout out to Lauren Bond, who is, I think, getting hands-on with that zone right now in pursuing her Bending the River project, and is actually encountering some of the soil and the water beneath the concrete channel. So I think it's a really exciting project that I'm sure a lot of folks here are following. It's a really interesting question. I don't know I have a good answer to the second part, except for kind of plays to both, is that when we're thinking about biodiversity and our rehabilitation of particular sites, and of course I'll talk about Taylor Yard because that's the biggest thing we got going, we're really focused on trying to create conditions that will allow for native biodiversity to flourish. Kind of if you build it, they will come approach, particularly like the wet-dry cycling that doesn't happen along the banks of the river like it would have in time long ago. So as we're bringing water into the site from storm drains, eventually we hope to bring river flow through the site and allow, during rain events for it to have some places spread out, and do that cycling that I talked about that is so important for a lot of the native species. So, I think our opportunities to do those kinds of things are somewhat limited. So where we have the space to do it, we really got to go for it.
Thank you. That's great to hear. Any other responses to that? Thanks, Melina. Other questions from the crowd? Here we go.
I was just curious, maintenance can make or break a project, and a lot of times cities are hesitant to add more park space just for that fear of having to budget that in. When you're starting new projects, do you budget for maintenance at the onset? Do you set up an annuity? Do you set up partnerships? Or do you just depend on hopefully grant writing and some community assistance? How does that work for you?
I can start with that one. So to just get right to the answer, we do consider operation and maintenance at the very onset of what we call project development, project concept. I think that's hugely important. Your point is so well taken. Thank you for the question. I think it's important to recognize that the Safe Clean Water Program and everybody that worked to bring that to fruition was very mindful of that exact thing and recognizing that it was important to not just have capital funding available, but to also have that long-term O&M to ensure that you're going to have funding for that in perpetuity for those projects that were warranted to be, the right projects and needed. I will say that, and just another note to that, and it ties to kind of Melina's question in the sense that I think we're still doing a lot of adaptive learning associated with green infrastructure, nature-based solutions, and really understanding how to develop a workforce that can appropriately maintain, and then also, understanding what the different just capabilities of those different treatment opportunities are. So definitely operation and maintenance is a huge part of how we address a project.
I'm going to answer a little differently. No, we don't do it well enough. There are times, there are good examples, but they tend to be the exception. And the reason why it happens that way and why it still happens that way, even though we all lament about it ourselves, is due to really bad and boring answers about the way that money gets programmed within our government systems, and that capital money is one thing, and maintenance money comes in the form of salaries to staff, and that is handled differently, and they ebb and flow on different cycles. Sometimes you might be flush with capital money, as a lot of, there's a lot of government money flowing right now that's rooted in the federal government, but the same is not true for staff. And so those things can ebb and flow in different cycles, and it makes it really challenging. I think we have a lot of work to do to figure out good answers. In terms of like an annuity that was suggested, awesome idea. It's not something we generally do in government. We don't take budget money and set it aside. We spend money in the budget year and we move on to the next budget year. So having like multi-year, doing a better job with multi-year capital planning and multi-year staff planning is one aspect that's way above my pay grade. But it's something that needs to be, forefronted. I think that one of the solutions that we've been looking at is setting up sort of independent kind of operations and maintenance models. We're really excited to launch a pilot program called River Rangers to do some public space upkeep, and we're doing that with an independent source of money drawn from the state, but that's not permanent money either. So we have a lot of work to do to tie those things better together.
I'd just like to add a solution to both of them.
Please.
The tribe created Tribal Conservation Corps, so we're there for service fee and willing to help out in maintenance of the park and providing. So it's a brand new program, so definitely there.
That looks like a partnership waiting to happen. Well, I also just want to underscore the point that Carolina made about Measure W, and when you're looking at operations and maintenance of these important projects, that when the public votes to contribute funds, that the way that you quickly lose their trust is if those projects aren't well maintained and not operating and not doing what they were intended to do. So such an important component of building trust in the communities that we're serving. So I just want to please thank our panelists again. We're out of time, but this has been an incredible conversation. Thank you. And with that, I think we're bringing up the chair of the board of the Council for Watershed Health, Steve Arakawa.
Thank you, Liz, and thank you to the panel. Liz, that was really great, and starting with the panel this morning with Miguel, and then later with Maz. I mean, we really had 3 great panels, 3 great moderators, and we're almost there. There's some seats that are empty, but not too many. I mean, we've got a pretty good crowd here, and our intent now is to just go through the last stretch here. And today I listened. That was really what I really wanted to do, was to soak it in. Because at the Council for Watershed Health, our interest is in trying to understand different perspectives and find ways that we can help out to try to bring parties together, to try to understand, what needs to be done and how can we help to try to understand the shared vision. So a lot of listening. I've jotted down some notes, so I don't have outlined in my head, okay, here's the answer to what we need to go out and do, but I think some of the key things that I heard was we had the panel on Beyond the Banks, which really focused on people and how do we involve people. We talked about the science and education from the source to the streams, and just all of the information that goes into that to understand what's really happening out there. And then we talked about a shared vision, but how do we plan for climate resilience with a shared vision on this last panel. And we had the breakout groups as well, and I feel that those breakout groups really were important to the experience for today, so that everybody had a chance to hear a little more about what people were thinking and to ask questions and such. So, some of the things that I pick up is it really is about people. When I come from an agency background, dealing with the regional water supply, and you get so involved in looking at what the agency's mission is, and with the council and being part of the council board, the great experience of that is looking at how we can be helpful to looking at the different ideas and the different vision, and recognizing that not everybody sees things the same way, but seeing that as an opportunity to try to help out. And I think that it really was nicely encapsulated with the idea of approaching it as a people issue, to understand what people's interests are, what their needs are, knowing them. So it's not like you go to a meeting and you try to understand what they want and you come back with something. It's more about involving yourself personally in developing those relationships over time. And that's what I really brought out of it, because it really does build towards that trust, but there's no trust unless you invest over time, and that's what we want to be about. We talked about education and engagement in science and the trends that are going on with the monitoring, and it really does mean, I think, from all of that there's an interest in keeping our commitment to going and monitoring for more information over time. I think we've learned some things, but there's a lot more to learn, and it's a complex system. But the beauty of it is we've got new ways of understanding what we're seeing. We have new ways of measuring. The eDNA is an emerging thing that we didn't have, so many years ago. We have new models, and we have a new generation that is equipped to deal with those things. And that's the bright spot of being able to incorporate the sciences, that we're talking about managing a system that's so complex, but we have people that are earlier in their career that have developed the tools, understand the tools to figure out how do we deal with the complexity. And then just now we talked about shared vision. And what I heard, and I'm just processing it for myself, is this understanding the people aspect of it, but it's also understanding the cultural interest and the cultural preservation, and being able to share cultures with each other, because it's where we live. We all live here. We all have our different backgrounds and our ways of doing things, but you get to know each other by understanding their culture and being able to share that culture. And that allows you, I think, to really get into that conversation about what we have a shared vision in the future, that everybody has an investment, because we see our culture and our future kind of tied together in some manner. Water dialogue is a good way of doing that. That came up in some of the discussion. ReDesignLA efforts, and how we involve community-based organizations and others in not only bringing projects forward, but more importantly, involving people from the front end, so that they understand what's the need and how do we come up with different ways of meeting that need. So overall, I think that this was an important point in time. We had our last symposium 5 years ago. We've learned so much since then. Obviously, we have a lot more to learn, but I think more than ever in the previous years, we have a much more sensitivity towards how do we make that investment in understanding the people that are part of the community, the people that in the past have not been heard, that have felt invisible. How do we make sure that those voices are being heard as we go forward and try to make some improvements? So that's what I would share for you today. The Council for Watershed Health, which is what I'm a part of, the board, we continue to stay committed to the partnerships. Our focus is on partnerships, not only new partnerships, old partnerships or existing partnerships, but new partnerships. And we're really focused on that. That is kind of my summary of what I've heard. Obviously, you all have, you've listened to all of this and you have your thoughts as well. If you have anything that you'd like to share with the council, please do that. We invite that. At this point, I'd like to call up Clark Stevens, who has something that he would like to say to the group, and then I'll come back for the final portion of the program.
Hi, everyone. Yes, there aren't many empty seats here, but unfortunately what I asked Eileen and Steve to be able to announce, I've talked to as many people in person as I could today, but one of the empty seats is that of Mark Abramson, who passed away Friday night, and I know that anyone who knew him would want to have known of his passing. And if you did know him, you're probably now realizing that you also loved him. He was a giant of the mountains where I've worked for the last 12 years. And like many of you, he passed through a lot of your organizations. You're probably also realizing that you never really accomplished something physically in the ground that's still there today, growing on its own without Mark's help. So just wanted to let you all know, and this would have been one of his communities, Healthy Watershed, Healthy Community. While we've lost one today, he was so passionate, full of life for this kind of work, working in the watersheds. I would ask you in the coming week, perhaps, to put on your best pair of cargo shorts and take a walk along your home water when you can. Well, thanks, Steve. And with that, Eileen, I'll let you close.
Thank you, Clark. I really appreciate that. Yeah, we have a joint part here, which will not take long, but it's really important to us. First of all, I would, as the president of the board, I'd like to thank you all for being here today. It means a lot to us. We all work in some way towards improving, our natural system, the watersheds, and it touches so many people here in the region, and so I really appreciate all of your involvement. I want to thank, as the president, the board of directors for allowing us to do what we do. Like I said earlier, our existing partners and our new partners that we want to continue to nurture and work with. And Eileen will talk about a few others, but before she does that, I'd like to thank Eileen as the executive director for all of the work that she put into planning this, along with many others. But Eileen, in talking with Eileen over the last several weeks, it was quite an effort, and I really appreciate all of the hard work and all of the hours and all of the sleepless nights that she put in doing this. Thank you.
Okay, we are so close to being outside and enjoying the company of our poster presenters. Before we do, I do have some thank yous, and it's not possible to do this without our partnership with LA Sanitation, LA County Public Works, in the city of Burbank. The LA River Monitoring Program is one of our key programs. It's one that really helps us understand the health of the watershed, as you really presented, and so many others did. And so it's that data analysis and results that really bring us together and give us the opportunity to convene and learn from each other. And today really wasn't my sleepless night so much as Ureli Sanchez's sleepless nights in many efforts. Ureli really held the vision for this ambitious symposium, and we're not there yet, but it has been one of my favorites so far. We've had a variety of voices in each panel, something that is always something we're striving for. Our breakout sessions gave us a chance to really dive deep on some of these topics that we heard from you the last time we met 5 years ago. And then we brought art into this one, and we've been wanting to do something along those lines. And I need to give a special shout out to our artist, Tilly Hilton, who loaned us the beautiful posters that you see along the walls, Jenna Didier, and Aralyn Wynn, who helped us with some hands-on art work that you'll see out there on the tables. And then our partnership with the Autry, and of course, all of you for being here and spending time, and to our sponsors who generously support the work that we do, and that includes Jacobs, County Public Works, LA County Sanitation, LADWP, Stantec, Abbott, and MWD, and Edison. And then again, all of you, thank you again for being here, and we look forward to seeing you in another 5 years, hopefully, another State of the Watershed, but hopefully sooner.